Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the darkness of an ominous Friday night, thunder accompanied the flashes of lightning that briefly illuminated the house. Heavy rainfall added to the symphony of nature's chaos outside. Amidst this storm, two figures cautiously navigated the corridors, their path illuminated only by the soft glow of a phone's flashlight. "Be careful of..." But it was too late, as Andrea's warning was interrupted by her brother's collision with the familiar obstacle. "Ouch!" Weston complained, as he did a futile rub of his hip. "This table seems determined to trip me every time." Andrea's laughter filled the dimly lit space. She swiftly gathered her long chestnut hair, exposing her face. It's always been faithful to its post, standing right there for over a decade. "You're just a walking disaster." At 32, Weston was 2 years older than his sister, but anyone observing them would think Andrea was the elder sibling. She carried herself with confidence that Weston had always envied, especially in moments like this when his gangly 6-foot frame seemed determined to collide with every piece of furniture in their mother's house. "Mom won't be back until Sunday," Andrea said, opening the door to their mother's bedroom. "What should we do to pass the time?" "We could always play cards by candlelight like normal adults without electricity," Weston suggested, adjusting his glasses in the darkness. Andrea rolled her eyes. "Boring. We could raid Mom's closet. She's got all those fancy clothes from her cruise phase." Weston followed his sister into their mother's room, watching as she threw open the double doors of an enormous walk-in closet. Andrea aimed her phone light inside, revealing rows of meticulously organized clothing. "Remember when we used to play dress-up in here as kids?" Andrea asked, running her hand along a row of evening wear. "You played dress-up," Weston corrected. "I was usually forced into playing the audience." Andrea pulled out a black cocktail dress with a sweetheart neckline. The fabric shimmered even in the dim light. "This would look amazing on you." "Very funny," Weston said, though something in his chest tightened at her words. "I'm serious." Andrea held the dress against him. "You've got the shoulders for it. Mom's tall for a woman. You two are almost the same height." "That's ridiculous," Weston protested weakly, his fingers betraying him as they reached out to touch the silky material. Andrea's expression softened. "Why don't you try it on?" "What? No, I couldn't possibly..." "West, it's just us here. No one would know." She pressed the dress into his hands. "Besides, what else are we going to do? Sit in the dark and be bored?" Weston looked down at the dress, his heart pounding. I wouldn't even know how to put it on properly." "That's what sisters are for," Andrea said with a grin. "Come on, it'll be fun." Before he could form another excuse, Weston found himself nodding. "All right, but just this once, and not a word to anyone." Andrea pretended to zip her lips. "Your secret's safe with me." In the bathroom, with Andrea waiting outside, Weston carefully removed his button-down shirt and jeans. His hands trembled as he slipped the dress over his head, the fabric cool against his skin. It took some adjusting, but eventually he managed to zip it up partway. "Andrea?" he called softly. "I need help with the zipper." His sister stepped in, whistling appreciatively. "Look at you!" She zipped up the back of the dress. "It fits perfectly." Weston turned to face the mirror, and his breath caught. The dress hugged his torso in a way that created the illusion of curves, the hem falling just above his knees. His blonde hair, which he'd been growing out due to missed haircut appointments, fell softly around his face.
I don't look ridiculous?
He asked hesitantly. Are you kidding? You look gorgeous. Andrea stood behind him, adjusting the dress slightly. You just need a few accessories, and maybe some makeup.
Makeup?
Weston's voice came out higher than intended.
Nothing major. Just a little bit to enhance your features.
Andrea was already rummaging through their mother's makeup drawer. Sit down on the edge of the tub. Weston obeyed, his mind spinning. This wasn't the first time he'd thought about wearing women's clothing, but it was the first time he'd admitted it to anyone, even indirectly. As Andrea carefully applied foundation to his face, he closed his eyes, allowing himself to enjoy the sensation. You have amazing cheekbones, Andrea murmured, brushing blush across his face. And your eyelashes are so long. It's not fair.
I got them from Dad,
Weston said, keeping his eyes closed.
Hold still,
Andrea commanded as she applied eyeshadow. You know, you seem surprisingly comfortable with this. Weston remained silent, unsure how to respond. After a few minutes of careful application, Andrea stepped back. Open your eyes, she said. Weston looked in the mirror and barely recognized himself. The person staring back had his features but looked softer, more feminine. With the black dress, subtle makeup, and his blonde hair framing his face, he looked right. Well? Andrea prompted. Weston struggled to find the words.
I like it.
Andrea studied him for a moment. You've thought about this before, haven't you? Weston nodded, unable to speak. Why didn't you tell me? She asked gently.
I didn't know how, he admitted. I wasn't even sure what I was feeling. It was just something I thought about sometimes.
Andrea squeezed his shoulder. Well, now you know. And you look amazing, by the way. They spent the rest of the evening in their mother's closet, with Andrea pulling out different outfits for Weston to try. A teal blouse, paired with a pencil skirt. A floral sundress that swirled around his knees. Each outfit felt more natural than the last.
The power's still out,
Weston noted as they finally collapsed on their mother's bed, surrounded by clothes. Who cares? Andrea grinned. This is the most fun we've had in ages. The power returned the next morning, but something had changed between the siblings. A week later, Andrea showed up at Weston's apartment with shopping bags. I got you some things, she said, pushing past him into the living room. Nothing fancy, just some basics. Weston peeked into the bags and found a selection of women's clothing, blouses, skirts, a simple black dress similar to their mother's but newer, with tags still attached. Andrea, you didn't have to. I wanted to, she interrupted. Besides, half of these were on sale. Consider it an early birthday present. Weston fingered the soft material of a cream-colored sweater. Thank you. There's more, Andrea said, pulling out her phone. I found some makeup tutorials I think would work really well with your face shape. And I've been researching how to style longer hair.
You've been researching?
Weston raised an eyebrow. Andrea shrugged. That's what sisters do, right? Help each other look fabulous. Over the next few months, their dress-up sessions became regular occurrences. Weston's apartment transformed into a safe space where he could explore this side of himself, with Andrea offering guidance and support. She taught him how to walk in heels, how to apply mascara without poking himself in the eye, and how to coordinate accessories with outfits.
You need a name,
Andrea declared one evening as they sat cross-legged on Weston's living room floor, painting their nails a matching shade of burgundy. "A name?" Weston looked up from concentrating on his thumbnail. "You can't keep calling yourself Weston when you're dressed like this. It doesn't fit." Weston considered this. "I've never thought about it." "Well, think about it now," Andrea encouraged. "What name feels right?" Weston closed his eyes, thinking about how he felt when dressed in feminine clothing, the sense of rightness, of finally being aligned with something deep inside himself. "Jade," he said finally, opening his eyes. "I think I'd like to be called Jade." Andrea smiled. "Jade, I like it. It suits you, especially with your eyes." The name stuck. When Weston dressed as himself, he was Weston, but increasingly, he found himself wanting to be Jade. The boundaries between the two identities began to blur. On his 33rd birthday, Andrea presented him with a carefully wrapped package. Inside was a burgundy A-line dress with 3/4 sleeves and a subtle pattern woven into the fabric. "It's beautiful," Weston breathed, holding it up. "Try it on," Andrea urged. In the bathroom, Weston, or rather Jade, slipped into the dress. It fit perfectly, accentuating all the right places and flowing gracefully around her legs. She emerged to find Andrea waiting with a small jewelry box. "These too," Andrea said, opening the box to reveal a pair of delicate silver earrings. "But my ears aren't pierced," Jade protested. "They're clip-ons," Andrea explained. "I thought of everything." With the earrings in place and a light application of makeup, Jade stood before the full-length mirror in her bedroom. The person reflected back was someone she recognized, not as a disguise or a costume, but as herself. "What do you think?" Andrea asked softly. "I think," Jade said slowly, "that this is who I've always been." Andrea hugged her tightly. "I know. I'm just glad you finally found her." The journey from those first tentative steps in their mother's black cocktail dress to fully embracing her identity as Jade wasn't easy. There were difficult conversations with friends and family, moments of doubt and fear, and practical challenges like updating identification and navigating professional spaces. But through it all, Andrea remained her biggest supporter and most trusted style consultant. The power outage that had initially plunged them into darkness had, paradoxically, illuminated the path to Jade's true self, a self that had been waiting patiently to emerge, dressed in a black cocktail dress and ready to shine. 5 years later. The boutique was quiet for a Tuesday afternoon. Jade adjusted a display of summer dresses, ensuring the teal one was prominently featured at the front. The bell above the door chimed, and she looked up to see Andrea entering, laden with shopping bags. "Please tell me those aren't all for me," Jade said, tucking a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. "My closet is already bursting." "Not all of them," Andrea replied with a grin. "Some are for me, but I did find this amazing pair of sandals that would go perfectly with that sundress you wore to brunch last weekend." Jade shook her head fondly. "You're incorrigible. That's why you love me." Andrea set her bags down by the counter and looked around the boutique. "The place looks great. Those new displays really brighten up the space." "Thanks." Jade ran her hand along the counter, still feeling a surge of pride every time she looked around her shop. Style by Jade had been open for just over a year, but it had already developed a loyal clientele who appreciated Jade's eye for fashion and her inclusive approach to styling. "How's Mom?" Jade asked, beginning to unpack one of the shipments that had arrived that morning. She's good. Still adjusting to retirement, but I think she's enjoying the freedom. Andrea picked up a burgundy scarf from a display and wrapped it around her neck. She asked if you're coming to dinner on Sunday. Wouldn't miss it, Jade promised. Their mother had been surprisingly supportive of Jade's transition once she'd gotten over the initial shock. These days, she was known to brag about her 2 beautiful daughters to anyone who would listen. As Jade continued unpacking new inventory, her mind drifted back to that stormy night 5 years ago. How nervous she'd been, standing in her mother's bathroom in that black cocktail dress. How freeing it had felt to finally acknowledge a truth she'd been suppressing for so long. "Remember that power outage?" Jade asked suddenly. Andrea looked up from examining a pair of earrings. "The one where we raided Mom's closet? How could I forget? That was the night Jade was born." "Not born," Jade corrected gently. "Revealed." "Semantics." Andrea waved her hand dismissively, but her smile was warm. "Either way, best power outage ever." Jade couldn't argue with that. She finished unpacking a box of blouses, arranging them carefully on a rack. Her life now wasn't perfect. No life ever is. But it was authentically hers. The journey from Weston to Jade had been filled with challenges, but also with unexpected joys and discoveries. "Oh, I almost forgot," Andrea exclaimed, digging through one of her bags. "I got you something else." She pulled out a small gift-wrapped package and handed it to Jade. "What's the occasion?" Jade asked, accepting the gift. 5 years, Andrea said simply. 5 years since you started becoming who you were always meant to be. Jade carefully unwrapped the package to reveal a delicate silver necklace with a pendant shaped like a dress. "It's perfect," she said, immediately putting it on. The pendant rested just below her collarbone, catching the light from the boutique's overhead fixtures. "I had it custom made," Andrea explained. "It's supposed to look like that first black dress you tried on." Jade touched the pendant gently, remembering the feel of that silky material against her skin for the first time. "Thank you. Not just for this, but for everything. I don't know if I would have had the courage to become Jade without you." "You would have," Andrea assured her. "Maybe it would have taken longer, but you would have found your way eventually. You're too strong not to." The bell chimed again as a customer entered the boutique. Jade straightened up, professional mode taking over. "Welcome to Style by Jade," she greeted warmly. "Let me know if I can help you find anything." As she helped the customer navigate the store's offerings, Jade caught sight of her reflection in one of the many mirrors. The woman looking back at her, with her blonde hair styled in soft waves, wearing a cream-colored blouse and pencil skirt, the silver dress pendant gleaming at her throat, was exactly who she was meant to be. Later that evening, after closing the shop, Jade invited Andrea over for dinner. As they sat on Jade's balcony with glasses of wine, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, Jade thought about how far she'd come from that stormy night. "I have something to tell you," Jade said, setting down her wine glass. "I've been thinking about taking the next step." Andrea raised an eyebrow. "Surgery?" Jade nodded. "I've been saving for a while, and I've done all the research. I have a consultation next month." "That's huge!" Andrea said, reaching across the table to squeeze Jade's hand. "How do you feel about it?" "Scared," Jade admitted. "But also ready. More ready than I've ever been for anything." "I'll be with you every step of the way," Andrea promised. "Shopping for recovery outfits, bringing you soup, whatever you need." Jade laughed. "Of course your first thought is shopping." "Hey, post-surgery comfort is important," Andrea protested. "Besides, it's what I do best." "Among many other things," Jade said softly. "Being the world's best sister, for instance." Andrea smiled, a hint of moisture gathering in her eyes. "It's easy when you have the world's best sister in return." They finished their wine as the last rays of sunlight disappeared behind the horizon. Jade thought about the journey ahead. More challenges, certainly, but also more growth, more authenticity, more life lived as her true self. From a black cocktail dress during a power outage to a successful boutique owner contemplating gender confirmation surgery, it had been quite a journey. And through it all, the constant thread had been the unwavering support of her sister, who had seen Jade even before Jade had fully seen herself. "To new beginnings," Jade said, raising her glass in a toast. "And to being exactly who you're meant to be," Andrea added, clinking her glass against Jade's. As they drank to the toast, Jade felt a sense of peace wash over her. The road ahead might not be easy, but she wasn't walking it alone. And most importantly, she was walking it as herself, as Jade, the woman she had always been meant to be. 3 months later, Jade stood in her bedroom, preparing for her first public appearance since her surgery. Her burgundy A-line dress, the one Andrea had given her for her birthday 5 years ago, hung on the closet door, ready to be worn for the boutique's anniversary celebration. Recovery had been difficult at times, but with Andrea's help, and yes, the comfort outfits she'd insisted on buying, Jade had made it through. Now, as she carefully applied her makeup, foundation, a touch of blush on her cheekbones, eyeshadow that complemented her green eyes, mascara to lengthen her already long lashes, she felt a profound sense of completion. The doorbell rang just as she was finishing her lipstick. "Come in," she called, knowing it would be Andrea. Her sister appeared in the bedroom doorway, wearing a teal dress that Jade had helped her select. "You look amazing," Andrea said, taking in Jade's appearance. "How do you feel?" "Whole," Jade replied simply. "For the first time in my life, I feel completely whole." Andrea's eyes misted over. "I'm so happy for you." "Help me with this?" Jade asked, holding up the silver dress pendant necklace. Andrea stepped forward to fasten it around her neck. "Perfect," she declared, stepping back to admire the full effect. "Absolutely perfect." Jade turned to face the mirror, taking in her reflection. The burgundy dress fit her new body beautifully, highlighting curves that were now physically present rather than created through clever styling. Her blonde hair, longer now, fell in soft waves past her shoulders. The silver dress pendant gleamed at her throat, a reminder of where this journey had begun. "I can't believe it's been 5 years since that power outage," Jade mused. "And look how far you've come," Andrea said proudly. Indeed, Jade thought as they left for the boutique celebration. From a borrowed black cocktail dress in the darkness to standing fully in her light as Jade. It had been a remarkable journey. And the best part was, it was only just beginning. When they arrived at the boutique, it was already filled with friends, family, and loyal customers. Jade's mother rushed forward to embrace her, followed by colleagues from her previous career and new friends she'd made through the boutique. "Speech! Speech!" someone called as champagne was passed around. Jade found herself standing at the front of her store,
surrounded by people who had supported her through various stages of her journey. With a glass of champagne in hand, she looked at the faces turned expectantly toward her. 5 years ago, she began, I tried on a black cocktail dress during a power outage, and it changed my life. Sometimes the most significant moments happen when we least expect them, in the dark, during a storm, when everything familiar is suddenly unavailable, and we're forced to find new ways of being. She smiled at Andrea, who raised her glass in acknowledgement. This boutique is more than just a clothing store to me. It's a place where people can discover or rediscover themselves, where the outside can finally match the inside. Every piece of clothing we sell here is a potential revelation, a possible moment of clarity for someone who, like me, might be searching for a way to express who they truly are. Jade touched the silver dress pendant at her throat. I'm grateful to everyone who has been part of my journey, especially my sister Andrea, who saw me clearly even when I couldn't see myself. And I'm grateful to all of you for being here tonight to celebrate not just the anniversary of this store, but the ongoing celebration of authenticity in all its forms. She raised her glass. To Style by Jade, to new beginnings, and to being exactly who we're meant to be. Hear, hear! The crowd responded, raising their glasses. As the celebration continued around her, Jade found a quiet moment to stand near the window, looking out at the street. She thought about that stormy night 5 years ago, and the person she had been then, uncertain, hidden, afraid. And she thought about who she was now, confident, visible, free. The journey from Weston to Jade had been complex and challenging, but standing here in her burgundy dress, surrounded by people who loved her for exactly who she was, Jade knew with absolute certainty that every step had been worth it. Andrea appeared beside her, slipping an arm through hers. Penny for your thoughts? Jade smiled, turning to face her sister. I was just thinking that sometimes the most important journeys begin with something as simple as trying on a dress. Or as dramatic as a power outage, Andrea added with a grin. Or as constant as a sister's love, Jade said softly. Andrea squeezed her arm. Always. Together, they rejoined the celebration, 2 sisters navigating life side by side, one journey completed, and countless more waiting to begin. Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!